Since I ended my review video of the new Superman movie by saying it's super, I suppose the question regarding the movie I'm reviewing in this video would be, is it fantastic? I just saw the new Fantastic Four movie, The Fantastic Four First Steps. This will be a spoiler-free review, as my reviews of movies that just opened in theaters traditionally are. I will tell you this much, though. Those of you who had your fingers crossed and were hoping against hope that we might finally be living in an era of human history where there would not only be both a good Superman movie and a good Fantastic Four movie, but a good Superman movie and a good Fantastic Four movie in theaters at the same time. If that was your wish, in my opinion, your wish has been granted. Because I think the new Fantastic Four movie is a good movie. I will start by talking about the things in it that I thought were good, that worked for me, and there are quite a few things in the movie that worked for me. Then I'll get around to some of the things that maybe didn't work so much. But the number one thing, really, that any Fantastic Four movie needs to get right is the Fantastic Four, is the team itself, the four main characters. You got to get them right. And that's a matter both of casting and also of writing and direction. And I think this movie does a very good job with creating this version of the Fantastic Four. So you've got Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. You might remember Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things. He was Eddie Munson in Stranger Things. There is Eben Moss Backrack as Ben Grimm, aka The Thing. You'll know him from The Bear or from the Netflix Punisher series, among other credits. There's Vanessa Kirby, who you may know from some of the Mission Impossible films or from the Netflix series The Crown. She is Sue Storm, aka the Invisible Woman, and as the leader of the team, as Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, Pedro Pascal, who you will know from everything. Because he's in everything, and deservedly so. Because Pedro Pascal is awesome. Count me as a member of that dude's fan club. I know that, loving Pedro Pascal has kind of become an ordinary thing these days because everybody loves Pedro Pascal. And if you ever meet someone who has a marked dislike for Pedro Pascal, that's kind of a red flag all by itself. He doesn't have to be your favorite actor ever. You don't have to love everything he's ever done. But, if you don't like him, if you positively dislike Pedro Pascal as an actor or as a human being, but especially as a human being, that just all by itself, that tells me maybe I should keep you at arm's length. Maybe we don't have as much in common as we should have if we're going to be spending time together. So Pedro Pascal leading this cast as Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, they are all really, really good. They're all just, I don't want to use the F word to describe them, but they're all really, really good. They and their performances and their camaraderie and their chemistry on screen together is the best part of the movie and is the thing that lifts the movie up when some other facets of it maybe start to sag a little. So the cast, the main cast, fantastic. There's also Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer. She only has a handful of scenes, but she's really good. I love the way they realized her character. She's mostly a special effect when she's on screen, but she's only as much of a special effect as she needs to be, if that makes sense. When she speaks, she's speaking with her voice. They didn't fuck with her voice to make her sound more alien or more, except there's a couple scenes where she's speaking to large crowds and her voice is amplified. But other than that, when she's just talking character to character, she just sounds like a person, and thank God for that. And same thing, you would know this from the trailers, but with The Thing as well. Eben Moss Backrack plays The Thing with just a normal voice. He doesn't do a Thing voice. He's not, let's go, it's clobbering time. He just talks like a person. And I dig that. I dig that. I'm nutty that way. So she's great as the Silver Surfer. and again, is not a central character, but is an important supporting character and has a little arc. Like her character gets a little bit of an arc, which is very nice, nicely done, and very satisfying. And then Ralph Ineson as Galactus. I assume just the voice of Galactus. I don't know if he would have done motion capture for Galactus on screen or not, because again, Galactus is, I would assume, I mean, it might have been a guy in a costume, but I would assume Galactus is, if not entirely, almost entirely a CGI creation in this. And that's not a complaint. He looks great. And he feels and seems and moves just like you would like Galactus to be on screen. I mean, he's like Galactus from, you know, a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby comic book come to life. The Galactus is terrific in this. And old school Fantastic Four fans who revere those, you know, original Fantastic Four comics from the 60s, I think will be very happy. I think you'll probably be happy with this whole thing. But particularly Galactus. Galactus was one of the things that the makers of the previous Fantastic Four films turned into a problem that didn't really need to be a problem. It was one of the side effects, I think, of that long-standing assumption that Hollywood is just now finally starting to shake off, that if something is really, really silly in the comics, you have to make it not silly on screen. Like, it has to be grounded for audiences to accept it on screen, at least in live action. Like, you can't go too goofy. With the Superman movie that just came out and with this Fantastic Four movie, hopefully that utterly ridiculous, wrong-headed assumption is finally being discarded. Because I think the Superman movie is doing very well at the box office and is doing really well critically and in terms of popular opinion. Hopefully this Fantastic Four movie will do well also, because it deserves it. It's too good of a movie to just be tossed in the bin and for people to say, it's another Marvel movie, you know. But hopefully it will be a success too, and that will help Hollywood to finally let go of this ridiculous idea that, well, it's got to be grounded, you know. I think that was a direction that the previous Fantastic Four movies, especially the most recent one, really leaned into way too hard. Like, if you're going to do Galactus, do Galactus. And if you're doing a Fantastic Four movie, and you're saving Doctor Doom for later, which they are, then there's no reason not to do Galactus. And if you're going to do Galactus, do Galactus. And that's what they do. They do Galactus, and they get away with it. They pull it off. Galactus is terrific. Ralph Ineson's voice as Galactus is, again, just as with Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer. And I believe she did do motion capture for the performance. So, like, it's not just her voice. It's also her physical performance that was captured and translated into the Silver Surfer you see on screen. But regardless of how they realized the character from the stage, the sound stage to the screen, both Silver Surfer and Galactus are terrific. And about that notion of having things grounded, there's nothing wrong with doing a grounded superhero movie. I'm not saying that that should never happen or nobody should ever attempt it. There have been some really, really terrific grounded superhero movies. I would put at the very top of that list Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, especially The Dark Knight, and also Matt Reeves's The Batman from several years ago. Both of those are as grounded as you can get with Batman. Like, Batman, even Batman without having superpowers and stuff, like, he's still a fundamentally silly, goofy character. But you can do him in a way that takes him seriously and that can be taken seriously as drama, as suspense, as action, as whatever, and be grounded. And those movies do a very good job of that. I would argue, for the most part, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are fairly grounded. There's some outlandish details, but the outlandish stuff is almost all tied directly to Spider-Man himself or whoever his villain happens to be in that given movie. The world of Spider-Man in those movies is fairly realistic. It's more or less the real world. But with the new Superman and with the Fantastic Four, that is not the case at all. And both of those movies demonstrate, to me anyway, and I think to a lot of other people who have seen them and feel similarly to them that I do, they demonstrate that you can make a movie with a world that is just completely a cartoon, and audiences will still enjoy it, and will still be emotionally invested in it, and will care about the characters, and will care about what happens, and will be capable of being gripped and moved by the movie, as long as you make the characters grounded. The world can be completely unreal as long as the characters feel emotionally real. And that was something that I felt very strongly about the Superman movie, and I feel that about this movie as well. The world is a cartoon. The world is a Silver Age comic book come to life in terms of the things that happen, in terms of just what feels like the status quo of this world, and the incredibly outlandish, ridiculous things that happen just as a matter of course, and that the people that live in these cities in these movies just kind of have come to accept, right? But it feels emotionally grounded. The people aren't cartoons. The people feel like real people with recognizable emotions. And that's what makes it work. And I really, really hope that becomes a trend. I really, really hope that becomes a trend for these movies. Another thing I really hope becomes a trend. This movie, The Fantastic Four, First Steps, it's more or less about 2 hours long. Oh, what a relief that is, especially with it being a Marvel movie. I mean, Superman was DC, and I mean, the pre-James Gunn DC movies are guilty of this just as much as the MCU movies, but the MCU movies are really the ones that kind of kicked this running time bloat into high gear in terms of superhero movies, or I mean, even MCU movies that I really like, that I enjoyed and was moved by and was entertained by. They start to drag, and when you get up towards that 2.25, 2.5, 2.75 hour mark, you start to think this does not need to be this long. And the Fantastic Four movie avoids that problem completely. There are several really, really nice action set pieces in it. The action is very well staged, very well executed. It's comic booky, but it still feels, and I don't want to say grounded again, but it has gravity. You know, it feels real. It feels like it's actually taking place. It doesn't feel weightless like a lot of largely CGI stuff can sometimes feel. It's really, really well executed and well done. And the best part of all the action sequences in the movie, they don't feel like they go on forever. That's one of the things that makes these 2.5, 2.75, 3 hour superhero movies not only be that long, but feel as long as they sometimes feel, because they have action scenes that just go on and on and on forever. And you don't need that. You don't need an action scene that just keeps going. You can do a nice, tight 2, 3, 4, 5 minute action scene. If 5 minutes is kind of pushing it, unless it's like a big deal, right? And you've really got some great ideas, and it really tells a story unto itself. Like, there are some action scenes in this that are just fantastic. Oh, I said it. I said the F word, but it just came out. It just came out naturally. But there are some really, really terrific action scenes in this, and they never overstay their welcome. They never feel like they're going too far over the top, or they're wasting your time, or they're dragging out. There's a scene in this, I think probably the longest sort of action chase suspense sequence in the movie, other than maybe the one at the climax. And I didn't have a stopwatch on it or anything. There's an outer space scene in middle-ish in the movie, like toward the beginning, but closer to the middle. And they're in outer space, and there's like a chase, escape sort of action scene that feels just ripped from the pages of a comic book. Like, it's just from the physics of it, the logic of it, the look of it. It's comic book all the way down. It's terrific. And it goes on for a little while, but they get away with it because of just the sort of freewheeling nature of it, and because there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of really important stuff, like plot-wise and character-wise, that's happening on top of the action stuff. So I think they get away with that. I didn't mind that. But other than that, there's really no action scene that feels like it's pushing it, you know? So there's a lot of good things in the movie. There's a lot of things in the movie that I was very impressed by, that I was entertained by. It's funny. There's an easy camaraderie between the characters. I feel like we get the characters, we know the characters, and the movie feels like it knows the characters, like it knows who these people are as it's showing them to us. That's really important. So, a lot of good stuff. On the not so good side, and it's going to be a much shorter list, but there are some things about the movie that just I wish had been different. We get kind of a prologue. There's no origin story. It's not the origin of the Fantastic Four. Again, thank God. But we do get kind of a prologue where the origin is recapped. And I feel like that takes too long. In fact, I feel like we don't need that at all. I feel like maybe not in the editing phase, but at least in the script phase. There's a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end that kind of ties together. And I feel like with just a little bit of tinkering, we could have just dropped that completely. And the movie would have been better for it. It doesn't ruin the movie. The movie doesn't, it's not a bad movie. It's a good movie. I like the movie. But the little prologue thing at the beginning where we get the recap of their origins, I could lose that completely. Because most of the important information in there, including information about the circumstances of how they got their powers and how everybody feels about it, etc., we get that in sometimes more indirect ways, but there's nothing wrong with that, later on in the movie. So we can just lose that completely. I would be fine with it. I mean, there's some fun sort of aesthetic parts of it, like it's done in a style that is evocative of like a 1960s TV series or a 1960s TV show, which I liked. And actually, that's another thing I can add to the list of things I liked about the movie. The production design, the look of New York City, the kind of retro futuristic New York City that they live in and that most of the action takes place in. Wonderful. It looks and feels unlike any other MCU movie so far, which again is a really, really good thing. It doesn't feel like sort of Marvel big screen house style. It feels like its own thing. I dug that. There's a note right at the beginning that tells us which Earth it takes place on. I could have done without that. I know that, and the actual, that pays off at the end. There's a little note at the end that explains why this Earth is called what it is. And it's a nice little moment. It ties into a tribute to somebody who definitely deserves to have tribute paid to them. So it's nice in that, but there's another way they could have done that. It's just, and again, this is a nitpick. I fully admit this is a nitpick, but I don't need you to tell me what Earth it's on when the movie starts. Like that feels like total fucking over the line comic nerd shit. Like just show me the movie. You don't need to tell me this is, by the way, this isn't the main MCU. This is Earth, whatever. I don't need it. Just tell me, just show me the movie, right? Again, just a little nitpick. That's all. Just a little nitpick. I could have done without it. And there's a way in which the climax of the movie is constructed. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to go into details, but there's a way in which the climax of the movie is constructed that makes assumptions that I don't think are established well enough. Like the heroes make assumptions about what Galactus will do that I think we have not been shown that they have any reason to make. Like previous to this big sequence at the end, we've seen that Galactus is in his big spaceship, and it sure seems like Galactus is just in that ship a lot. Like, it feels like he doesn't leave the ship very much. And then they lay a trap for Galactus at the end that depends on him leaving the ship. And it sounds like tricking Galactus to come out of the ship is going to be a big deal, and then it's just totally not. And that felt a little undercooked to me. But other than that, that last sequence is really well done. Like the ending of the movie is really well done. The ending sort of action sequence is really well done. And then the actual end of the movie and again, they end on a little joke. They end with some comedy, which I thought was really well done and terrific. But yeah, those are the things about the movie that didn't quite work as well for me as maybe they should have. I would have lost that prologue. I would have lost that little tag at the beginning that says this is on Earth, whatever. I would have maybe gone back and made sure I had all of my I's dotted and T's crossed as far as the trap that they're laying for Galactus at the end. This is if we don't count the Roger Corman one from the 90s, which I'm not counting because it ruins the bit that I'm about to do, and also because it wasn't theatrically released at the time. I don't think it's ever actually been officially theatrically released at all, has it? But if we don't count that one, and we just go with the theatrically released Fantastic Four movies, this is the fourth one. because there were the two from the 2005 version with Ioan Gruffudd and Jessica Alba and Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis as the Fantastic Four. Right, there was Fantastic Four, and then there was Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So those were the two, and then they rebooted those with the Fan Four-tastic one, with Miles Teller as Reed Richards, right? And then there's this one. So this is the fourth one, and it's also the first good one. So it kind of works out perfectly if you think about it in the fullness of time. Completely appropriate that with the Fantastic Four, in terms of theatrically released live action movies, fourth time's the charm. How about that? Is it a great movie? I don't think so. It's a very good movie. The Thing in this is a bit of a self-styled chef. He's a bit of a cook. He's kind of a foodie. So to take a page from his cookbook, if I were to describe the film in culinary terms, I might say that it's of a nourishing, tasty, filling, satisfying meal, but not one so good that I would feel compelled to devour it. It's a very good movie, but fantastic? That's a stretch.